Oh no, Andy.
Wow. My brain was implanted on a roach.
In a world where brains and bytes fuse inside tiny living bodies, what happens when the line between biology and technology disappears entirely? Who controls the creature? And perhaps more importantly, who controls the controller? This year, researchers at Harvard made headlines with tadpoles implanted with neural chips, soft, flexible electronics that monitor brain development from the inside. They plant them in the embryonic tadpole and watch it as it develops. Fascinating. Meanwhile, Singapore, real cyborg cockroaches developed by HTX are being deployed in disaster zones in this year in Japan and Myanmar in earthquakes, and they're guided by AI and they're trained to find humans in the wreckage. These aren't science experiments. These are not flights of fancy or perhaps nightmares, depending on your affinity for this sort of thing. These are living AI hybrids right now, tools born from biology and guided by algorithms. But if we're teaching machines to ride inside beings, are we building heroes? Are we becoming hosts? This is cyber-cockroach first responders, the cyborg creature revolution on the on the Sci-Fi AI show. And we are already crawling, swimming, and evolving the cyborg way into our world. It is July 11th, 2025. We are live streaming at 4:03 right now p.m. on Eastern time. And that's what we're talking about today. So let's talk about a little bit in terms of the orientation of what what is a cyborg, Jyunmi?
Okay, so yeah, little definition. If you're not familiar with cyborg, the term usually refers to a cybernetically enhanced individual. Machine parts are used to replace functionality and increase functionality or capability for a person in most cases. But it's any kind of living being, as we're talking about in this context. It's a merging between the organic and inorganic. So that's the basic context of cyborg. And we've seen lots of various instances in science fiction, whether that be simple neural implants. So we've talked about brain-computer interfaces. Anything anything technological that you plug into yourself or you implant is gonna make you a cyborg. It's usually referenced. The term is used when there's a significant portion, but that's a little bit of a gray area. There is no, line in the sand of saying, oh, if you're beyond this, you're a cyborg. Beyond or before that, you're not. So technically, anybody who's got a ocular implant or a pacemaker or anything like that, you're a cyborg. Congratulations. So, but in most science fiction, I've seen it as a way to replace. So it's a form of advanced prosthetics or prosthesis to give to replicate baseline or improved capabilities. So you can run faster, or you're stronger. You can lift up things. Yeah.
So let me. I'm going to share this intro video. It's about a minute and a half, and it's from the people at HTC when they were presenting the cyborg cockroach. There we go. Here we go. Did I even check the thing? Probably I did not. Let me. Oh, yes, it's the end of the day, and I am remembering where I share things. Screen, window, entire screen, Chrome tab. There we go. I know what I'm doing. Here we go. Thank you. All right.
Who would have thought that insects like these could actually save your life? Meet these insect hybrid robots. Equipped with a tiny chip and battery backpack, these Madagascar hissing cockroaches have been engineered to put their ability to navigate small spaces to good use and help to search for survivors in search and rescue operations. These hardy creatures are on average 6 centimeters long when fully grown. Attached to them is a 5.5 gram backpack consisting of several sensors and a small infrared camera that can detect life by picking up temperature signatures. Inside this backpack is a microcomputer that outputs electrical signals to the neuromuscular sites of the insect to direct its movement. And so, in the aftermath of a collapsed building, these tiny insects can crawl their way through rubble and debris, between crevices and confined spaces, searching for survivors and providing frontline responders with critical information in emergency situations. A dangerous and hazardous task for frontliners and one limited by their size. This science and technology solution was developed by the Home Team Science and Technology Agency together with Nanyang Technological University and Class Engineering and Solutions. HTX is a science and technology agency that brings together science and engineering capabilities across the Home Team departments to transform the homeland security landscape and keep Singapore safe.
Nice.
Cool.
So that's what that's the cockroach cyborg, and actually there's a conversation happening in the chat. Initially, dogs are better than cockroaches, right? Like, no, we want dogs to go and find people and do things. But if you're gonna like do brain implant and like keep things alive while you're poking in their brains, cockroaches might actually be a really great option, because there aren't that many people who are like, don't poke in the cockroach's brain, that's wrong. But also there are a bunch of advantages. Andy, I'm wondering what you're thinking about this.
So I see cyborgs as a natural extension of prosthetics. So the prosthesis that's added to the cockroach is adding functionality to the cockroach that also includes telemetry back to the humans who did the job. But now imagine for us as humans that, we have a situation where, we need a prosthetic limb. And today, that prosthetic limb is either, overtly controlled by your system. And cybernetics, by the way, is the study of feedback mechanisms and systems and control between different components of either a living system or a mechanical and electronic system, or both of them together. So cybernetics is all that control and coordination process. So you can imagine now, if we start to implant AI into the prosthesis, it could learn your gait, right? And it could, without you having to directively control it with your own, brain computer interface, BCI, you would just have the AI, this smart leg, start to anticipate all of your movements and then match your gait and movement and respond almost instantly to any change in gait, for example. Now, take it another level and add sensory capabilities to the AI implanted in your prosthesis so that it actually can see what's going on down there with your other legs and limbs, and it can hear, and it can, you can actually speak to it, right? So we have a natural language interface with the leg, and then eventually, as my mind is spinning around this idea of advanced prostheses, now I say, okay, well, I don't really need a leg because my two are working fine in my regular brain interface, but I'd sure like to have eyes in the back of my head. So I'm going to add a prosthesis that lives on my shoulder, right? But is looking backwards, or can look in every direction, by the way, and is a smart AI. It's connected. I have a brain computer interface with that thing. and it can actually, protect itself by quickly, hiding behind my shoulder and, doing all kinds of other things. It might actually develop some skills to protect me. So if it senses that I'm doing something that's going to damage me, it'll warn me. It can speak, right? It's there right next to my ear. It'll talk to me and it can warn me, hey, this guy's coming up pretty fast behind you. Watch out. You have eyes in the back of your head with an advanced cybernetic attachment that makes you a cyborg. So enhanced capabilities. And now think about this in its application to the possibly improbable warrior of the future, the human warrior. Now, I think that largely human warriors are not going to be exposed by having to go into the battle environment. They'll be remotely operating, drones and telepresence operation of weapon systems, as opposed to actually putting my very, very fragile body into the battle. But imagine if you had this advanced warrior, or there's a situation where you have to put a human into the deployment. You would have these cybernetic connections to enable not just superhuman capabilities by an exoskeleton and additional weapons and so on, but also a brain-computer interface connecting them to enhanced vision. So you no longer have to wear the nogs, the very restrictive field of view, but enhanced vision that's available through the white phosphor kind of displays. Instead of that, you just automatically have night vision that's far superior to the nogs, and it has not just forward-looking, attention-oriented visibility, but feeds your brain continuously a 360-degree view of the surroundings. Okay,
Wow.
so those are my thoughts about being a cyborg.
So that's interesting and disturbing and all of those things. I sort of love the idea of the cameras and the big toes, right? So like, yes, I would alert me if I am about to kick into something that I should not kick into.
Or not just alert me, stop that leg.
Yes, absolutely.
Stop that leg.
Kill switch. Don't do it. Everybody stop. But the idea of future soldiers or future battle cyborgs, I understand why we think that humans would not be in that situation, but at the moment we still haven't found, here on the Sci-Fi Show, we have not yet found a system that is as efficient as the human brain for powering this kind of intelligence network, right? So we're not talking about the organelles today. We'll do a show on that at some point, but they do grow tiny human brains with human brain tissue, and they haven't found a way to make them live as long as it used to be just a couple days. Now it's a couple months, maybe up to a year. But they haven't found a way to keep them alive long enough. And of course, as they get more involved, they start to be more recognizable as human brains. And I think it gets a little more freaky about that. But we may be at some point in a situation where we're using actual humans for their human brains in our cyborgs.
So you think the future is more like Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder than a completely autonomous robot in the battlefield?
I think we might see some places before that. I mean, this is I'm not trying to go super dystopian, but that does seem to be where my head is going. Apologies, but at the moment, human life is actually less expensive, right?
Oh, yeah.
Excellent, Beth. Let's go to Jyunmi about some of this. So let's go back to the rescue kind of idea, or Jyunmi, wherever you want to go.
Okay. So, all right, to expand on, well, I guess how do we get to where Andy's talking about from where we are today, right?
Nice.
So the rescue option operators or the first responder type of use case, is probably the easiest entry point for this. Number one, I'd like to comment on that video. They were nice enough to use the cute roaches, which is those Madagascar ones, because if they use the ones that we find in Hawaii, no, if you looked at them side by side, I know you may not like roaches, but if you look at them side by side, the Madagascar hissing roaches is far more appealing roach than other ones. Okay, I'll leave that at that.
Man, those hissing roaches are just super
They're just so
appealing.
cute. Where is it? Now, it probably also has to. It's probably also a choice of, well, accessibility, but how much surface area they have and how small they can make the components and sensors, right? But the intriguing idea here is that the current implementation really is a matter of direction, right? The attached components, they're able to motivate the roaches to go into the places. So let's say a collapsed building, right? And because they're in the location, the devices send all that information back, right? It's still whoever the operator is or whatever group that is interpreting the data and information and making choices from there. It's information gathering. It's not like the roach is pulling people out of the rubble or moving rubble out of the way or anything like that. Now, we could see that in the future when you have, when you have devices or animals or cybernetic creatures that have that capability. We've all seen instances of where animals like a large dog could pull people out of an avalanche or those kinds of things. And then we've seen security dogs and things like that are able to take down an intruder and those kinds of things. So these are powerful animals. Now, they're already used in rescue operations and things like that. I think the cybernetic part of things, or the cyborg part of things, that's more to just increase the capabilities of being able to use your existing animal personnel to extend those capabilities. The roaches in this case are, of course, obviously chosen to be able to get in and out of places that other animals can't. So you might just see different animals being used in their traditional spaces, but enhanced by some sort of technological package.
Right.
But like you said, Beth, people are probably not going to go, hey, why don't you implant something in that dog to make it better? There's going to be a conversation about that. There were programs for training sea animals to go find, ordnance and things like that. Those kinds of programs, and people didn't like that idea either. So, I mean, I think the long-term build out is either like Andy says, it's the prosthesis line of things, where it's oh, this animal's been injured. How can we enhance their lives, right? No more three-legged dogs, those kinds of things, right? And then, of course, where we're already seeing development of robotics into form factors that would help in whatever the use case is, first response or security or, whatever you would want a presence. I agree with Andy in the progression of the cybernetics in terms of there's going to be a combination. I do think there will be the cyber warrior. I think it will be more on the special forces as opposed to the rank and file. because you'll still want, people will want other people to handle certain things and not just rely on drone or remote or robotic warfare. There will be lots of that, but I think there will be particular cases where you'll want a human soldier who can be beyond human capabilities for certain things. Besides,
I think you're
also,
right. You're right on that point. And
Yeah.
I'll speak from some knowledge. My son-in-law is in naval special warfare and went to the Naval Postgraduate School and studied, and did thesis on more advanced models. But his perspective is that the objective of NSW is to reduce the number of times that you have to put a human into the into the line of fire. And
Right.
so, they're thinking very deeply about surface drones and underwater drones. And instead of Navy SEALs having to dive and expose themselves to the risks underwater and end up surfacing at the beach and all of that, and in the waves, and there's a lot of risks associated with that. They're planning to deploy, at least as an advanced force, so that by the time the humans actually land on the beach or make their appearance, it's the mop-up operation, not the initial wave of assault.
Right. And we've seen that in every level of technology brought into warfare as well. So, ranged weapons
started out with
versus
carpet bombing.
a bow and arrow versus a sword. We want to soften the target, and then we go and mop up as best we can. So I mean that's been evident in each technological revolution. Now,
And to a certain extent, that's true in both scenarios, right? You're daisy chaining your process. So you're doing your first like invasion or your first research in the smallest, least detectable, least expensive way to get the data that you need, and then you're sending the more robust and probably larger and more robust is a good word, right? Like bigger bang for the buck. It can get the job done kind of thing as you continue to move on in terms of what we consider valuable and reliable, right?
Yeah.
Go, Jimmy.
I was just gonna say, and we've seen this lately, the development of this approach in warfare lately with Ukrainian war to great effect from the Ukrainian side and drone use and that kind of stuff. And that's just an indicator of what we're going to see more and more of down the line. Now, I do want to switch more back to implementation examples of where we can go from the roaches as a jumping off point, right?
RoboCop.
Was
Let's
that
go from cockroaches to RoboCop? There's
you want to go to RoboCop? Okay. All right. So number one, like the basis of Cyborg is to replace any loss of capability and to increase capability beyond your baseline, normal baseline or human baseline. So I would say the number one thing. So if we want to examine like where your launching off point of for what you were talking about, Andy, is about the prosthesis. It's when you were talking about having the AI being able to communicate with you through whatever the prosthetic was. I think that's a great way to build off of. So in our case, what Beth said was right. The human brain is still our best overall processor of information and being able to send those signals.
At least for portable use. Yeah.
For portable use. Yes,
for electrical
sure.
use.
If you've got if you've got a warehouse, then you can build giant monstrosities. But in terms of having it on a personal level or an individual level, it's the best energy to processing thing that we got right now. Now, one of the key things, and I think we've talked about this before, is that brain-computer interface, right? It's that internal device that you can plug into other things or communicate with your brain. It's that, and that's where that AI would live, right? Whether you're plugging in additional skills on chip, direct neural interface. It's like, oh, hey, I want to know Kung Fu, put in the Kung Fu chip or the Kung Fu program. And since it has direct connections to your nervous system, it can act as that bridge between your brain and the rest of your body. It's the same thing with the cybernetics, is they're going to have a version of that. And that might be the basis. Maybe you need to get that DNI in there so that you can then connect to your other prosthesis. What will be interesting is when you really get really beyond what the human experience is. So Andy, you were talking about like, whether the leg can be removed or, let's stop the leg from actually hitting the table or stopping the toe from actually hitting the table. I was thinking along the lines of now you can have fully remote and autonomous limbs, right? So does your prosthesis need to be a part of you the whole time, right? Your leg, you could take off your leg and relax or whatnot. Ideally it would never feel like you're worn down or anything. But if it can just extend its own locomotion, then you could have your leg go do its own thing and then come back.
This is the Addams family, right?
Yep, there's the Addams family thing. You can do that. Eyeballs. That's the number one cybernetics that I want, is my eyeballs, is so I can get, ones that work. But if we're talking about, not to go back too much to the warfare side of things, but how about my eyeball that I can place somewhere and it still wirelessly transmits me the signal? If I got eyes in back of my head, I can know that 360. I can place them all over the place, and they're just different level AR screens, that I'm seeing in my brain.
Now we're Harry Potter, right? With the guy.
For sure. And if they're, if it's like a housing too, then that expands its capabilities. So what if I have my eyeball walk around on its own? Or it's a little quadcopter, flies up. I'm like, all right, cool, it's doing its thing.
Your eyeball is the ball that, right? Like that it can roll up into a ball and it can do stuff where it like comes out. Yeah. Now it's a spider, it moves around. Yeah. Like absolutely.
So this is where it really goes wild, because we're no longer limited to, when we're in this space, we're no longer limited to what, it's not simply just replacing it, right? This is a bad eye, replace the eye with another eye. I'm sure there will be developments along the bio side of things, right? So that you can have BioWare, which is simply vat-grown versions of your stuff. We might be the, what's that famous, was it the Odysseus ship, where he kept on replacing and repairing pieces until is it the same ship anymore, right? So we can go down that route where it's like, oh, okay, these eyes are bad, all right.
On this idea of having some prosthesis that has self-locomotion capability, I have a short, less than 1 minute video to share with you that's kind of cool.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah,
so let me do that.
For sure.
I'm going to show a video here. Let's see if I can find how to show it here. Oh no, that's not right.
Okay, we're gonna say hi to Gwen's dad. You gotta share it. And now we need to be cleaner. Andy, I don't see the shared yet. Here we go.
Okay, here it is. All right, you ready? Okay, watch this.
Ooh, so it's just giving every once in a, like, it's strobe light kind of. Oh, there we go.
Now watch the speed of this thing.
Yeah, that's the tricky thing, that we're not seeing the speed, but we'll include
That's
a
how
link.
fast it's really moving.
Wow.
And now you're going to see one that's not attached to the power source.
So is
This
this
one. And
no brain, no capans? It simply keeps on
it
going.
can maneuver
Yes.
over rough terrain, and it can swim. It automatically switches its motion from walking to swimming. And
Oh, that's amazing.
it has nothing cybernetic about it. This is just a platform for mobility. And now if you add to this kind of platform some cybernetic control, you've got an amazing addition. Basically, it's the mobility platform for anything that I could add as a prosthesis that is only requiring air pressure,
Right.
just fluid air pressure to
Right.
operate.
Well, that's the other thing I wanted to bring up is beyond the normal capabilities. This is definitely a beyond the normal capabilities. Also, who says we got to replace our lost limbs with regular human ones? Why can't I have a centaur body? Why can't I have a spider body? Why, at that point, how much of us, we don't have to replace ourselves with the same human stuff. We can replace ourselves with what we might consider improved, right? So
yes, make me taller. Like, I want the feet who can look out from the toes, but also like, yep, I'm now absolutely.
You know what it's like?
6 sticks.
It's like Inspector Gadget, if you're familiar, right? Just that's probably the best example of over the top, out there, box thinking of what the human body could extend out with cybernetics. Can have feet that put out springs, so I can now spring jump over things. Well, we can all be superheroes essentially once we get down the line there, right? So I think the Roach Cyborg is probably a clear first step of clearly enhancing a living creature with an additional sensor package, right? And there is already biohacking. There's already cyborg human hacking, where people are trying to put in RFID tags so that they can, activate things. We're going to have some NFC sensors that can be implanted. Humans really like their affectations, so I think cybernetics are just will be adopted much quicker once we hit a certain threshold. As soon as it's as easy as an ear piercing, then people will just get bits and pieces across the board. Just like how you might eventually get new glasses or like that have the AR capabilities and AI capabilities. People will start having smaller wearables,
Right.
The watch will expand out. You can have a ring or a bracelet or a necklace that's going to have AI capabilities. That's the form factor for a bunch of different products. So the wearables move into installables, and and then it builds up from there. It's that key thing about moving from replacing a capability to increasing a capability. And I think that'll be a tricky transition, but if people can find a basic a base or a framework or something device that can be installed and then you modularized, I think we'll see that accepted and we'll have more and more cyborgs.
So I have
that's probably
a companion sort of path of development that's not dependent on external sort of cyborg additions to the human body, but rather would be generative and accelerating evolution to achieve certain capabilities using mammal cells. And this is just from July 8th, an announcement by the University of Sydney that they've created a biological artificial intelligence capability. It's called Proteus, for protein evolution using selection. And what it does is it uses directed evolution, which was previously done with bacteria, to achieve different kinds of drugs and so on, or the manufacture of different kinds of drugs. But this directed evolution is now being applied to mammalian cells. And so in a science fiction way, we can imagine that as Proteus can generate new molecules right now that are tuned via this selection process to function in our bodies, but with new capabilities that are beyond our capacities with current technologies, you can imagine producing a directed evolution to achieve something that's an addition to the body that isn't mechanical or electronic. It's integrated into the system, but has been evolved in this rapidly accelerated way so that if I want to have eyes in the back of my head, maybe I don't need to actually have physical eyes that are, controlled by the brain. Maybe just I can develop a set of cells at the back of my head that acts like a huge retina, for example, but they're made like the retinal cells. And I've evolved this capacity on other parts of my body to receive light and interpret images in a way that the retina does. But I've advanced evolution to make it placed in a way that for a human body gives me 360-degree vision. That's just a notion.
Right. And that goes along the lines of the ideas of bioware and wetware and stuff like that, where it's a biological focus as opposed to a lack of a better term, technological focus, right? And this can be applied everywhere, right? So the largest organ of your body is your skin. So if you can modify your skin to grow receptor type cells, then you can, this is a new sensor for you. It gives you more information. Think about adapting, it's adapting, or it's directed evolution, or adapting for whatever environment that you're in. Let's say we need to take to the seas to expand our living habitat.
Okay.
For humanity,
Yes.
right? So we can process that with larger or additional lung capacity, right? Or adding gills. Or what if there's only so much arable land? So we now add chloroform evolved cells to our skin, and now we can get the nutrients we need produced simply by being out in the sunlight, those kinds of things. Now, this and cybernetics and the cyborg conversion, right, is at what point is this going to affect us mentally, in the fact that, and societally, right? There's this concept from some cyberpunk sources called like cyberpsychosis. And it's the fact that you are so different than what you started with, that you can do it so quickly that your mind has a harder time catching up, right, with just dealing with it. Think of it as the concepts surrounded around PTSD and those kinds of concepts. There's so much trauma, right? At what point does it become too much? And is it too much too fast? What is our societal interactions going to be, and cultural interactions going to be, if people start doing this on an affectation level? It's just like how there's interactions for tattoos, right? Different cultures react to tattoos differently. How much tattoos, where the tattoos are, affects how you interact with society. So it's the same thing with becoming cyborgs, or when it comes to the bioware. I mean, if you are now deep forest green because of your chloroform cells, um, is that going to cause a difference of how you're interacted with, right? We already have problems with that now. So, I mean,
Wicked would tell you yes.
yeah,
If you're born green, they are suspicious of you for your whole life, Elphaba.
exactly. And so I think that's part of any kind of technological advancement. There's always that separation or that gap between how quickly society adapts and stabilizes itself to any technological advancement. We're
Right.
seeing that now with AI, right? It's a much larger gap because AI moves so quickly. This is beyond the internet. This is beyond television, this beyond radio, this beyond the plane, there it's such a big gap and it keeps on growing. How much is it going to how much time and effort is going to be needed to get society to be caught up, or at least into a level where, okay, now we're stable, we've come up with, whether that be the laws, whether that be the social acceptance, all of these kinds of things. And that's always going to be a conflict point. And when we're talking about stuff that's going to affect people themselves and what makes a person in the physical sense, where's that going to conflict? And
So
how are we going to deal with that?
it's interesting. So we all talk off the shows. And Jyunmi and I were having a conversation the other day about, let's see, is this safe for work? About the difference between men and women typically, in terms of visual stimulus and we were talking about AI girlfriends and AI boyfriends, which is a show coming up next week on the Daily AI show. And the idea of having, because women are typically more interested in romance novels and men are more interested in visual and other kind of engagement. And I was saying the difference was that in the romance novel, it's intimate, you're hearing it inside your head, right? Like it's not separate. And in the AI girlfriend or AI boyfriend or whatever that is, there is an acknowledged distinction. That is my supposition. But in that context, what is the effect of this if you start to hear this as more in your brain, right? It is just an extension of yourself that you are perhaps not in control of. And we already know that even with our current capabilities, our senses and our brain edit the information, right? There's that um, famous psych observation study where you're told you're going to watch a video. It's people playing basketball. They have black shirts and white shirts, and you're supposed to count the number of times that the white shirt team passes the ball between themselves. There is in that video something that most people, if they're following that instruction, don't see, but is incredibly obvious if you're not given a goal and just watch the video. And that kind of thing is an example of how much we edit, right? Like we don't need to take in the entire video. We are just like, okay, I counted the passes between the people in the white shirts. That was all that was needed. Andy, yes.
That's selective attention. Yeah. Your focus, you can't absorb everything the way like an AI model can. So
Right.
you have to focus your attention in order to process it more serially. And you don't get all of the different things. And that's why multitasking is, for me, kind of a myth. As soon as I'm distracted by some other level of attention, there's no concept of multitasking. And the example you give is a really fun one to check out because it's a gorilla that walks across the basketball court and like 90% of people following the instructions that Beth described will not see the gorilla. They
Yep.
can't see it because they're focused on the whites and they're passing.
I mean, because your brain just says, cool, that's information I didn't need. We're not going to bring that into conscious awareness.
Right.
Before we completely go, I do want to share a little bit about this other advancement. It's the Harvard study, and it's more recent in cyber technologies. And what is interesting about this is
They turned me into a newt.
they turned me into a newt.
It's witches. Oh, sorry.
So
We're not there.
boil and trouble, fire and rubble. Yes.
Well, we did do the nose.
So tadpoles and frogs share a large amount of structures with us in terms of developmentally. We all go through a tadpole phase when we are developing as humans, but tadpoles have translucent skin and dorsal brains. So you can implant this in the embryonic tadpole and then literally watch it develop because it's translucent, right? You're not needing to do anything more invasive than that initial implant, and it's flexible, and it's able to. You can see in this slide, and I put the link in the chat to the paper. And it was published in Nature. The actual scientific paper was published in Nature. But what they're able to do is watch what is really happening inside the brain as it's developing. So they're looking at this as possibly giving us an insight into brain developmental diseases early on, but also things like Alzheimer's or even PTSD, depression, those kinds of things, right? Like
Very
everything that's associated with your brain.
So I know we're about to wrap up, but Gwyn's dad is on the line, and he's posed a question that I want to answer.
All right.
So Gwyn, the question is, they're talking about sending people to Mars. What are your thoughts on adapting people to be able to live there? Well, Gwyn's dad, I think that they're more talking about terraforming Mars and using technology to make Mars hospitable for humans, because human evolution and the adaptation of humans takes millions of years, right, to accomplish anything remotely qualifying as, I've physically adapted to be able to live in the harsh conditions of Mars, including, the radiation, the, toxic atmosphere, all those things. However, we have talked on this show about the idea of being able to accelerate evolution. And nonetheless, I believe that in order to provide a hospitable enough environment for even an accelerated evolution of humans to be able to go out into the Mars environment without, a lot of technological support, it would still nonetheless take way beyond our lifetimes, many, many generations of humans in evolution, even as they're accelerating it with these tools and technologies that we talked about, like in providing directed evolution of mammalian cells and integrating those cells into the body, in effect producing Mars gills that let you breathe the toxic atmosphere. But maybe you guys have a different perspective.
I think if you listen to Elon, who is, for me, the most vocal of we're just going to go to Mars, I believe Elon is actually talking about his consciousness being uploaded into something that could actually make the journey to Mars, that could live in that environment. I
think
correct me if I'm wrong.
Get rid of Elon on Earth. Let's upload him now.
Well, okay. So I think there's a question of likelihoods and timelines. We have the current technology currently today. If we weren't limited by budget, right? If budget wasn't a concern, we do have the technology today to just send a ton of material, tons and tons of material, and then have people there to set up camp, right? and
On
over
Mars.
time on Mars. And we can, there's been proposed plans that we dig into the mountains, form an underground, we can use the mountain itself and excavate that out to create a sealed environment. We can then grow our own food, those kinds of things, and have a colony. Now,
yeah, there
the
was an experiment here on Earth called the biosphere, I think, which attempted to test out this premise that you could have an enclosed system that was supportive of a certain limited number of humans. And I think that in order to prove out the technology is necessary to live in a completely otherwise lethal environment.
I believe biologically that was successful, but psychologically it was not.
Well, yes, you need variety. Humans need variety. If they stagnate, they'll go crazy. Cabin fever, XYZ. But I think that's probably the closest implementation. Then I think on a timeline wise, as that's going on, we will have both a technological and a biological development. This is the kind of stuff where we've been talking about today, where we can then create better robots to support life there, better suits to allow us to last longer in that environment, because the key things will be generating food, water, and air for us to breathe. Then it really comes down to a toss-up between the BioWare enhancements, like we talked about, is growing additional gills, lungs, whatever we need for that, and then the cybernetics prosthesis side of things as well. Because if you're mostly machine, that's less biological material you have to support.
Right.
So this goes along the cyborg idea of brain in the box. You get your brain in your nervous system encased and put into a robotic body. That I think is a little further down the line, but that's a solution as well. But I think it'll actually be about the same technologically wise, being able to just grow designer organs so that we can live in any environment, or put our brain in a box. I think those are parallel timelines. The terraforming is the one I think will take the longest, because it's just a process that takes forever to do, which is funny because it's an interesting conundrum, because Neil deGrasse Tyson is famous for saying, well, if you're going to develop this technology and put in all this time and effort to terraform Mars so that we can live there, why can't you spend that time, effort, technology, and resources to just fix the planet so that we can live here, right? So,
if you're living underground on Mars, but does it solve the sun problem that we're gonna get too hot because of the sun, as Gareth is saying, if we just live underground with the underground ocean that was found? And
I when it comes to moving off planet or expanding our influence into the universe, for me, it's all worth it for the exploration side of things.
Yes.
This is the pioneering explore. Let's move out into the neighborhood and see what we can make of it. But I think that kind of stuff is definitely in parallel with, well, let's fix what we got here so we always have some place to come back to. So that that's part of traveling, is you got to go, but you always want to come back.
It's the hoarder versus investor technology, right? Like, we've ruined this house, let's go and get another one, or let's beautify this house and then let's invest. So now we have two places where we could live.
I would prefer that humans do not evolve to become Independence Day aliens. If you're familiar with that movie, the whole premise of the aliens in that movie is they go throughout the galaxy, use up all the resources around them until it's dead, and then they move on. I don't think that's a sustainable, long-term sustainable plan, especially if we want to last more than 1 billion years as a species. But I digress.
I don't know. Does 1 billion years become more relevant for you if you're one of the people with $1 billion? Like 1 billion years still sounds really insane to me. That's way too long to be concerned about. But if I'm a billionaire, do I feel differently about it? Because they're definitely the ones who seem more like, go Mars.
Well, we need to reevaluate our value system as a species. So, or that is my perspective.
Yes. And before we go down, yep. Before you go down, we at the Sci-Fi AI Show have noticed that on a fairly regular basis, sometimes our shows end and yes, then dystopia. So we're not going to go to dystopia today. We didn't go to dystopia before. We are going to stay with the reason that this show exists, the reason that these conversations exist, are that these are questions that are coming up for us right now. Their current questions are not philosophical, as in thought experiments. They are, hey, this is happening. If this is true, what else is true? And what do we want to do about it? How do we want to be prepared for that? If you are having those thoughts, we would love to hear from you. You can join the Daily AI Show community.com to talk after the show. There is a channel there for the Sci-Fi AI Show and the Sci-Fi AI fans. And yeah, all right, we'll be back next week, I believe. I don't know what we're talking about, but we will definitely be talking about something. And thank you so much. Hope you have a great weekend. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Jyunmi. And we'll see everybody.
Aloha.